Now, it can get quite intimidating very quickly when you're trying to come up with a good design in a place where you have little to no knowledge about the industry or the product that you're going to design for. Now, but with a short and a simple design workflow, this process can become a whole lot easier. Now, I've been using this process and I've been teaching this process for over a decade, and we've been coming up with real creative designs in record times. Let me show you the exact way this is done step by step. Please stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daryl and you are watching Go Beyond Design. Please like and subscribe my channel so that you are the first one to know whenever I am taking out a new video. Now, to start off with, let's talk about what does your piece of collateral intend to do? What does it want to do? What does it want to communicate? Every artwork that you design has a purpose in mind, and that is the same case in this specific thing also. See, every collateral has a purpose. Like I just said, it might promote the brand in general, just create brand awareness. It might have a goal to serve. Say for example, if you want to design for a mobile company that they are selling out a new mobile, they might want to get sales of 50 units or 100 units by the end of the month. They could be educating the customer about how to use their product. So these are the main three scenarios why your collateral will be used in a way that it intends to serve a purpose. Or there could also be scenarios where you're not selling anything, you're not promoting anything, but you're trying to capture leads. Say for example, you have a talk show that you want people to attend to, and then you are just creating an artwork so that everybody can register for their talk shows. Or you could be having a carnival, or maybe an event where you would invite people to come to. You would want maximum people to attend that specific conference or a carnival, and this is what you are designing for. Or you could be selling a tickets of a laughter show for that matter, and then you will want to create registrations for that, drive a campaign for registrations for that talk show or that laughter show. So you see here, every specific artwork here needs to serve a purpose. It intends to do something, and that is what we are going to find out. What does the artwork intend to do? You have to understand what they need to communicate so that you can communicate it. If you don't understand what they want to communicate, you will never be able to communicate their ideas through your artwork. As simple as that. Understand what they want to communicate. Now, what do you want to communicate? You know what you want to communicate. Now you have to understand how do you want to communicate it. Understanding your audience is the most important thing when you want to make an artwork to communicate something. You have to understand where your audience is from. What are their likes and dislikes? What are the things that drive them? Which region or country is your audience from? What are their aspirations? What really excites them? Until and unless you don't understand your audience, it says something like a salesperson. A salesperson becomes friendly with somebody who just walks in. Why does that person become friendly? Why does that salesperson become friendly with that person? Because that salesperson wants to get to know that person. Because until and unless that person doesn't know, the salesperson does not know who this person are, what that person's aspirations are, what that person's requirements are, what that person looking for, he will not be able to sell him. As simple as that. And that is the exact thing we intend to do. We do not have a direct communication line with the customer, that I do understand, but we are going to do our best to understand the audience, the person whom this entire campaign is focused on. Until unless we do that, the campaign's ideas, the design, your beautiful design are going to fall on deaf ears. No outcome will be achieved. We've discussed about what do you want to communicate. We've discussed about whom do you want to communicate. Now what matters most is how do you want to communicate. The way you communicate something determines the outcome. Now, since we are talking about the designing aspect of this, we have to understand the medium through which we have to communicate. It could be through social media, it could be through TV ads, it could be through print advertisement, it could be through radio jingles. I know we are not doing radio jingles, but I'm just trying to tell you that, what are the mediums of communication. If your audience is of an age group which usually wouldn't be attracted to television, they would be an elderly age group who usually like to read newspapers in the morning, how would you want to communicate to that audience too? You would want to communicate your message through a newspaper, because that is the exact way they take in information. Say for example, it's a younger crowd, a college going crowd that you want to sell cell phones to. How do you think you will want to communicate your message to? You will obviously want to communicate your message through social media, because every young person is on social media. Not that the older generation isn't, but it's given that the younger generation is on social media. You would want to drive your campaign through social media. What if somebody is a professional and doesn't really get too much time on social media, but that person is always on emails? You will want to then drive your campaign through email campaigns. So you see here how you catch those audience at different places. You have to understand where they are, and then you go to them, and then you try to drive your campaign. And this is exactly, it's as simple as that. Go where your audience is, nothing more and nothing less than that. The other aspect to look at is attention span. Now every audience, depending on their age group, the time of the day, or the kind of activity they are doing, depends on what kind of attention they are willing to spare to look at your ads. Now what that really means into practice for you is that, take for an example, you're trying to communicate something on social media. Usually somebody would just scroll through an app and not even look at a social media ad, for that matter, if it's very bland, if it's very plain, if it's something which isn't very attractive and doesn't get the message across in a word or two. That will be ignored. Say for example, you are just going past in your car and you see a hoarding, and then you see a ton of information on that hoarding. Would you be able to read it? I highly doubt. A hoarding should have a sentence or so with a phone number to call, because the audience has a very small attention span when they are driving past something. On the other hand, just think about somebody who's taking out time to read a newspaper or a magazine. Now that person is really committing him or herself to reading that thing, and when your ad has a lot of information in between those newspaper pages or those news or that magazine, that person will definitely give more time and attention to your ad. You can put in a whole lot more information, but not in a place where that person is just going by. So you see how attention span really determines the outcome of the kind of information or the message you're going to put in. So this is exactly what this section was about. You have to know what your audience does, you have to know where your audience is, you have to know the kind of attention span your audience is willing to spare at different points of time. See, there are several aspects and mediums of communication when you want to communicate a design. I've just talked about how and why you would use a newspaper or a mobile ad or a social media campaign, and several other things that you would want to, because you know where your audience goes, you know what will get your message across, you know how to get your message across. All of that is right, but when you do actually do the designing on those mediums, how does it differ from one another? Take for example, if you were to design for a newspaper versus something that you would design for a magazine ad. Now see, newspaper is a very poor quality paper. So if you intend to put in fine design, fine text in newspaper, it will not come through. It will get washed out. But if you were to put that same details on a magazine ad which has a very nice quality paper, or for that matter any medium of communication which has fine quality paper, that will work. That will definitely work, because the viewing distance is very close, the quality of the paper is very fine. It will be, your message will be able to translate through that medium very nicely, very effectively, very efficiently. That can be done. Take for example, if you would want to communicate through a desktop versus something like a mobile device or a tablet. See, mobile device and tablets usually have screens which are much higher in density, and they can support higher resolutions, and they can show real fine prints, versus a desktop which usually does not have more than 100 or 150 pixels, and which is okay, but you will not be able to see small designs with as much clarity as you would in a mobile device. So accordingly, if say you were to design a social media campaign or a small banner ad, if you are designing a website mock-up for any client, you have to keep in mind how a website will look on a desktop versus how it will look on a mobile. So you have to understand, usually people scroll on a mobile screen, and yeah, of course people also scroll on a desktop computer, but the screen area, the screen real estate is much more. So you have to understand how that design will translate, or how that design will be responsive to a mobile screen versus a design to a desktop. So these are all the aspects that you need to consider before you actually sit down and even pull out a line on your design sheet. And that is extremely important. Understanding the kind of medium that you choose to communicate your message or your design will break and make your design. Please be very careful about this. Now we've talked about everything, and you will tell me that Daryl, you haven't even spoken about how am I going to start my first project, and how is this going to be. Now with all that knowledge, what am I going to do with all that knowledge? In this section, I'm going to tell you exactly what and how you will use all of these to make your design. And this is going to be a very quick and a step-by-step process. Okay guys, now with this we come to the end of our video. I hope this method, which has served me for years, will also work wonders in your career, in your job. If you really like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and if there's anything else you would have wanted me to touch on this video, please tell me in your comments below.